All the action from the Motocross of African Nations 2018 is brought to you by the FIM Africa and all their associate sponsors. So up we go. It's going to be an incredible journey. First time we've been up in Zambia in recent history. Last year it was Botswana. It was an absolute rock and roll event. This time the Zambians welcomed us.
Welcome to Zambia.
Yes, indeed. The track. So much work going into it in the months, not just weeks, but the months building up to this event. All the best riders from around the African nations were primed and ready, locked and loaded, and everyone had their 2019 bikes out. Good to go for the attack. Not to only bring home personal glory or sponsorship glory, but national glory to see who would be the best of the countries. Zambia have a great heritage, and last year they walked away with some silverware as well. This time around, they'll be trying to pin it and win it in each of the categories. The Zambian race organizer was going to be Kevin Bowling. He told everyone how the event was going to be running and what to look out for. An incredible entry gave us one of the biggest numbers of riders in the lineup queue to date. As with local, national and international events, a full tech check on all machines before they go into open practice. We caught up with some of the team captains, starting out with Scott Haygate from Zambia.
I think it's very important that all African countries come together and race against each other. First, it builds your riding up so much, especially if you do it from a young age. I've been doing it for many years now. And yeah, just develops your skill in racing, and you're just exposed to another racing environment, and you race against some of the best people in Africa. A big thank you must go out to Mopani Copper Mine for all their support through this event, and to Motul, to name but a few. But yeah, KTM Zambia. But the biggest thank must go to Mopani Copper Mine for this amazing environment that we ride in. We've got a game reserve right where we're riding in, so it's just a phenomenal environment.
The Zimbabwe team captain, Owen Robinson, had lots to say about the event coming up.
Yeah, we've brought 44 riders this year. It's the biggest team at the event. Obviously logistics to get 44 bikes all year have been very challenging, but we all here bar one rider, and we're here to enjoy ourselves, and thanks to everyone for an awesome facility, and let's hope on Sunday I can say the same thing.
South Africa have a great heritage. Jeff Dan was the man with the eye on the prize.
We got quite a few. Well, no, we don't really have too many challenges here. We got a fairly strong team. We got Kerem Fitzgerald, we got Maddie Milan in their class, we got Joshua Malimi in our main classes. Those are our two premier classes. We got a strong team. We got quite a few youngsters coming through who are still growing and getting there. They're fast, but be a new experience for them. But I'm pretty sure the guys will rise to the occasion and will do well.
Botswana were the host nation from 2017. Brad Peterson was waving the flag this time around.
We've got a fantastic team this year. We're all here to have fun, get out, be safe and enjoy the racing. And thanks very much to Zambia for the event and for holding such a spectacular track, and to everybody else that's come out and helped us to get here.
Team Uganda made a long trip to get down to come racing.
Yeah, so getting the team down here was quite a hustle. You know, Uganda is not so close, especially to bring the bikes. We had 23 bikes to bring down, 2 borders to cross, and at each border was quite a hustle. But the bikes finally made it yesterday, and we managed to do the scrutineering today. So we're here ready to practice and hope to have a good race.
And for Kenya, they're going to see what they could do to try and break their way inside of a top 5 for teams overall.
You get competition from other countries, new riders, you find riders the same with the same ability as you, and you'll be able to. It helps you push that one step further, try and get better yourself, and it's a good experience. You learn a lot. The change in tracks is also good. Change in soil, everything is good. The order of running, etc. And it's just encouraging to come to these kind of races and learn a lot from it and get exposed to the new environment.
So these were the nations that were going to go and look for glory. Everyone was going to go up against themselves and their countries. Sometimes people you've never raced up against before. So this was going to be the ultimate test of motocross Olympians. here at the 2018 running of the Motocross of African Nations. Join us after the break when we bring you all the racing action covering each of the categories. Welcome back to our coverage of the Motocross of African Nations from the Mopani mine in Kitwe in Zambia. Before we went racing, the local dignitaries got on the mic and welcomed all the nations to come racing and play and have a great time with us up at this amazing area of the African continent.
That I'm very honored and excited to come and officiate at this very important occasion. You know, sports is the only path that we can use upon our families to live healthy.
And with everyone welcomed by our local dignitaries, it was time to take to the track. The first time that everyone would be introducing themselves and their nations to the massing crowds that actually did pull in their droves to come and watch this incredible spectacle that we call Motocross of African Nations. All the teams were out there going to be doing their flag waving to see who could walk away as class champions as well as African Nations champions. There was a lot to play for, as there always is, and the 2018 running of the FIM Africa Motocross of African Nations gave us the biggest turnout we have seen yet, just showing that there's a lot to play for at these events. Not just national glory, but walking away as African champion. For some of the smaller nations, it was great to see Uganda, who had something like a 25% growth from last year for their team entered, and that meant there was going to be much more chance of them climbing the ladder in their respective heats entered. Once the track walk was complete, it was time to get ready, and we would be opening up our racing accounts with the smaller entries, the 50cc warriors, the stars of the future. It was great to see such a big entry coming in from Zimbabwe, the biggest entry yet, in fact, topping the charts at just under 50 entries, making them the biggest field. They were going to be a huge threat in 2018. First things off though, the little lighties, the 50cc class, opening up the racing account. In this lineup, 17 riders would take to the gate to see what they could do and get done, and it was going to be an interesting story to see who took first blood. The South African hopefuls were going to be interesting to watch out for, but the 26 of Malcolm Tapula Gift coming out of Uganda got an absolute burner coming off the gate. He was going to have to just slot in as the SA hopefuls of Jack Pullen, Andrea Maynard, Nicole Smith and Louis Mostert would control the pace out front in the early stages, but with 17 riders going at it. And they were out there on the big track as well. It was rutted up big time. They'd done a lot of watering, but just the early running of the 50cc's was showing that the track was not going to hold together the whole way through the day. Maynard hit the front nice and early on and was running some good pace, but it was going to be fun to see how many change-ups were going to happen and who was going to be able to hit the front first. Pullen took his chance out the front. Benzingwe from Kenya was looking good, trying to break himself inside of the top 10, but the SA boys and girls were looking locked in it and pushing super hard to try and get the job done. Back and forth they went. Maynard was trying to run the pace out front on the number 11, but no one was letting him getting away with it too easy. Nicole Smith on the number 12, getting up inside of the top 5 and trying to hustle for all the points on the plate. The track was a very, very big task for the 50cc's, and not super easy, not technical, but very, very difficult to find that traction in the early stages of the race. The 14 of Larson, also trying to break inside the top 5, would eventually go on to tag a number 6 finish. Maynard, the number 11, the kid that pulled the whole shot, would eventually have to settle for a number 2 spot, as it was Jack Pullen that took advantage of a late race crash and went out into the front. Mostert from South Africa made it South Africa 1, 2, 3 and 4, with the number 26 of Gift from Uganda just inside of the top 5 with a rock solid 5th place come the end of race number 1. The rest of the riders were still battling to find their pace. Outside the top 5, it was Larson, Van Ass, Southern, Franklin and Katenda that made it inside of the top 10 come the flag. Max Franklin managed to battle his way into single digits and managing to walk away with a 9th place for Zambia just up the road for him with 2 Zimbabweans of Van Ass and Southern. And out front, it was going to be all fun and games. A lot of riders suffering with some late race pace. King going down on the 43 for Zambia. And unfortunately, it would be a down and out, dropping outside of the top 10, while the rest of the pace just picked up and up all the way to the flag. And the first victory would go to South Africa. for Jack Pullen, walking away with a nice victory on the 13 to beat out Maynard, Smith, Mostert, and Gift, making it inside of the top 5. But SA and Pullen took the first flag. Climb the ladder then as we move up into bigger CCs, bigger wheels, and a bigger gate. 25 riders making the big queue, and it was going to be fun to see who was going to walk away with this one. For Bacco, Deploy, and Minart trying to race it out for the South African title, they'd be ones to watch out for. But from Uganda, Alan Orland on the 26 would be a big threat. Everyone was talking about him coming up to this event. He's been based in the US of A, so he knows exactly how to rip it and win it. McGregor was one of the flyers coming off the gate, and he started to stretch his legs early on. If you gated outside of the top 15, you're in big trouble, as everyone was trying to switch up their lines and figure out how to get things running. A couple of independent riders made the queue as well. Hunter Moore on the 106 was going to be out there charging hard, but Maynard, McGregor, Deploy, Orland, Van Veek, and Bacco were running big numbers and trying to just control the cheese out front. It was a good gate for Jordan Dudney out front there on the number 7. He would eventually go on and make a couple of mistakes though, dropping him outside of podium contention. In the early stages, it was all about the key players, the usual suspects, running out front. The 10 of Bacco, charging hard, trying to get those inside lines going, while the outside rails, and we saw that from the 50cc's that were the first gate out, the outside rails were definitely going to be the key to putting together a nice lap on this track. The inside ruts were starting to wash away. Some nice battles starting to form there in the early stages as well, as we saw Vion Deploy try to figure things out. He didn't come off the gate well, so he was going to have to charge from outside of the top 10 to break his way into it. That was the 12 that everyone had their eyes on as he started to make his way forward in the pack. The rest of the riders just trying to figure out how to get things done and how to get things going. Riders trying to just get those inside ruts rutted up. They would eventually form, but in the early stages, it was a no-go. Bacco, this time around, Manuredzi making a bit of a meal of the inside line as everyone was starting to build pace. Lap times were tumbling as well as everyone was flying around the track. Akiki Obote was up into the number 7 spot for Uganda, and Uganda started to make good on their promise, bringing home some incredible finishes, certainly in the mini formats of the 50cc's and the 65s. Jordan Dudney had a massive one, tried to rail that inside line, and like we've been saying the whole way through the build-up of the 65s, the outsides were the cheese. He was lucky to get away with that one and not walk away with too many injuries. Just a little bit of a bruised ego to start off his campaign for the 2018 running of the MX of African Nations. Out front, Luca Maynard, Wyatt McGregor, and it was all about Vion Deploy, who did eventually climb his way up into a top 3, making it South Africa 1, 2, and 3. Late on in the race, Shara Lambos from Zambia had big problems going down and eventually getting the bike going, but he wouldn't be breaking himself into the top 10. The riders that walked away with first victory in the 65s, it was a confirmed South Africa 1, 2, and 3, with Luca Maynard ahead of McGregor and Deploy. MX Lights would be up next on the 85cc machines, revved up, locked and loaded and good to go. All eyes, I think, this time around would have been on Johnny Malimi. He's been in great form in 2018, but with a stacked gate of 23 riders and a bit of an unknown situation, it was going to be fun to see what was going to go down. Unfortunately, a rider going down, that was Omar from Uganda, got crossed up on the 28, and he was definitely on for a good gate as well. He was definitely going to be into the whole shot, probably around about rider 7 or 8. He's going to have to pick up the pieces and come through the pack. And riders, once again, trying to just feel their way around the track. Those inside lines and inside ruts were just not holding up in the early stages. The riders would have to wait until the big banger 250 and 450 pro riders went out there to try and chew things up. Malimi was just easing his way into the race in the early stages, and it was going to be fun to watch. Stav Orland, the Ugandan hopeful, was on absolute rails, and behind him was going to be a hard-charging Diane Manuel from Zimbabwe. Super strong, keeping Malimi off his back wheel for now. Kate Van Deventer, Brice Romans from SA, and then Santamu from Uganda, giving us a nice spread of nations and quality as all riders were just getting themselves in the zone again. The riders just not hooking up on the inside there. Kylan Wakesa getting all kinds of crossed up, not losing too much time, but did lose a ton of momentum. Out front though, it was all eyes on Stav Orland as he just dropped the hammer on the field, leaving everyone else to pick up the pieces for the number 2, 3, and 4. For now, it was still Manuel that held on to second place, with Malimi starting to charge hard. Wakesa was coming back from his early race problems, But this was the point of the race where we saw Malimi make the pass on Manuel, and that meant it was a 2-spot for SA, as Malimi now came to life at the halfway marker of the event. Ricky White was finding some nice outside lines there to make some passes. That was Kieran Gantley that he sent back. So once again, riders were changing up their lines, trying to figure out the fastest way to get the job done. 41 of Rory Donaldson trying to twitch over his shoulder there as he knew he had some contact coming. After just making the pass, Ricky White went down hard, tucking it, allowing Wakesa and Gantley to come on back. The flag was out though, the third flag of the day, and it was Stav Orland that absolutely dominated the first event of the 85s. Zambia were going to be looking odds-on favourites in the first heat of the women's motocross with Leah Haygate and Jenna Bowling. Odds-on favourites. They knew this track back to front and knew exactly what to do to get the job done. They'd be going up against Janka Pieterse, Amber McGregor, and Leon Young were probably the big threats inside of the top 5. But with a 13-rider lineup, anything can and often does happen at the Motocross of African Nations. The big number 1 plate of Leah Haygate hit the front, and she was going to run and hide, try and check out, and leave all the rest of the work for the girls to try and figure it out. Janka Pieterse had a good pull off the line in the Yamaha, got herself up into an early number 2 spot, and left the rest of the girls to try and figure it out. It was a big mix-up of size wheels and size of engines in the gate as well. That would mean the field would no doubt be spreading out early on. Janka Pieterse so strong on the number 11, actually using her off-road racing bike, not changing the suspension too much to try and run the pace out front. But Leah Haygate was in all-out dominant form, and even in the early laps, she was gone. Early on though, Jenna Bowling did make the pass on Janka Pieterse to make it the ladies from Zambia running 1 and 2 with SA in the number 3 spot. Jadine De Lima in the early stages was inside of the top 5. Just behind her was Amber McGregor, the first of the smaller CC 85s. And then after that, the number 7 of Leanne Young, trying to get the Honda up into podium contention. The number 8 charging through of Bianca Bailing, so strong in the early stages, and was going to challenge later on for a top 5 finish. Out front though, and just running and hiding, Leah Haygate, with Jenna Bowling trying to build some pace in the mid part of the race to try and get on terms, but it was a rock solid tied up number 2 spot for her. The battle for 3rd place was starting to heat up though, with De Lima closing things down on Janka Pieterse. That was for the final podium position. The 43 of Hannah Wolfson was starting to get closed down, as Bianca Bailing and then the 13 of Kirsten Hughes were in an all-out war trying to break their way inside of a top 5. Coming into the traffic, and there was a bit of a close-up, Leah Haygate and Jenna Bowling, the closest they had been as they got into the lappers deep. Great performance and great turnout for all our ladies from the African nations getting the job done. The big story though at the halfway mark of the race though was a massive crash for Jadine De Lima, dropping her outside of that 3rd place dice that she was having with Janka Pieterse, and that allowed a couple of other riders to start climbing the ladder. Kirsten Hughes and Anna Watson now inside of single digits, and the 45 of Kaylee Price just having a little bit of a battle with her machine, one of the lower capacity machines out there, but out front no issues from Leah Haygate. Flag to flag victory, whole shot, and straight to the top of the pile. Join us after the break for more racing from Zambia and the Motocross of African Nations. Welcome back to our coverage from the Motocross of African Nations 2018 up in the Copper Belt, and the Mopani Mine hosting us just outside the time of Kitwe in Zambia. An incredible turnout for all the African nations to go and chase the cheese. We've had some amazing racing so far. We've brought you the coverage. This time around, it's the vets and masters, the age group categories combined to make a 22-rider gate. Everyone was revved up, locked and loaded. The majority of riders on big 450s, and everyone was going to be seeing what they could do. The big number 1 plate of Dale Holiday shot out front early on. He was going to be pushed hard by Jeff Dan, Gary Killian, Shane Thomas, but Warren Thorne on the number 6 was going to be a massive threat, super strong at last year's event, and once again he would be the man to beat in the vets as well as the overall category. Doug Meller, Brad Pieterse, Dean Henning and Fletcher Broud would be pushing on hard. The number 6 of Warren Thorne hit the front early on, chased down by the number 7 of Doug Meller. The 11 of Jeff Dan, putting himself on a KTM this time around, historically on the Suzukis, as everyone else, locked and loaded, got themselves slotted inside of the top 10. Pieterse having a good charge on the Honda, and riding out of Botswana, the host nation from last year, and they'd be trying hard to try and get as many points on the plate as they could in the early stages. At the back of the pack there, Amaranto, Campbell Young, Zeman, Masopi stepping off a quad and onto a motorbike. And then at the back of the pack, Ben King trying to pick up the pieces on the 44th for Zambia. Out front though, the charging Warren Thorne was already way deep in the lappers and trying to just put the pace on. Jeff Den on the number 11, charging hard. He would be eventually walking away with the win in the Masters category, beating out his good buddy Gary Killian and Dale Holliday. That was for the Masters category, as everyone else tried to figure things out. Shane Thomas, Lofty Fastfelt, Francois Deploy, Jim Perry, Barreto and Beverly making up the 9 riders inside the Masters. But the number 7 of Doug Meller was charging hard. He was up into the number 2 spot overall and second in the veteran category. There's some nice dices happening out there in the field as well, with the number 1 of Dale Holliday up to 3rd place, riding out of Zambia. Didn't get the gate that he really wanted, got a bit absorbed into the pack. The number 14 trying to figure things out, that's Mark Beverly in the Masters category, charging hard. And at the halfway marker, everyone was starting to feel the pace. The number 6, no problems. And a cruise to the flag for Warren Thorne. Everyone knew he was going to be a massive threat. And he gets the points on the plate. Doug Meller in 2nd and Peterson in 3rd. That was for the vets. And in the Masters, Jeff Den gets it over Gary Killian and Holliday. Very strong results coming in for a combined vets and Masters. But Thorne is the main man.
Tough race. Track's getting very, very bumpy. So tomorrow it's all going to be all about finding nice lines. Hope to do the same tomorrow.
And in the Masters category, Jeff Den walked away with the first win.
Won my Masters class overall. Had a good ride. I'm really happy with it and really chuffed. It's what I came here for, to enjoy myself, and winning is a bonus.
The last couple of seasons, the 125 category has really been coming to life. Now, the 125 category at the Motocross of African Nations is an extremely hard one to win. 15 riders making the cut and the lineup, traveling across all kinds of borders to line up here in Kitwe, Zambia, to get going and get racing. The number 2 of Regan Wasmuth was going to be a massive threat, but off the line, everyone was just trying to figure things out. Tito Chibana actually got a good pull off the line for Botswana, but he would get eaten up and into the pack as all the key players came piling to the front. Sangster on the 12, Aviv Orland on the 26, Granger on the number 26, and Kihara on the 17 started to absolutely rip the track apart as the 125s set the track alight. The number 2 of Wasmuth hit the front early on and started to check out, leaving the rest of the key players from Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya, and a couple of South Africans in the mix as well. The number 13 of Thabo Versteed came off the gate incredibly strong and was running inside the top 10 in the early laps, but he would make some mistakes later on. Wasmuth, Sangster, and Orland were running amazing pace, staying away from the chasing pack. Coming through the pack, though, was the number 26 of Orland. He was going to be an interesting rider to watch out for. The 12, though, of Sangster made a big mistake early on, dropping outside the top 6, would have to plough the field. Fredman was running good on the 42 and starting to make some strong passes into single digits inside of the top 10. So a couple of mistakes coming from some key players early on, mixing up the results outside of first place. Wasmuth, though, clean as a whistle, no problems. And Sangster was a man on fire, railing the top of all the berms to try and check out and run and hide. The 17 of Kihara was running amazing pace as well, coming out of Kenya, inside of a top 5 in the early stages, with the 41 of Aiden Kirsten trying to just stay ahead of Fredman. They were in a battle all race long for 8th and 7th on the track. The number 8 of Jaden Young was battling to find his form, sitting down way too early in the heat for his liking and his trainer's liking as well. Ali Omar Yasser was running incredible pace as well, 6th place. And that would be some good points on the plate for the nation and himself for his championship. Wasmuth was just untouchable and had set his stall out early as the firm favourite. Sangster and Orland starting to change things up, with Sangster turning on the style as he got himself up into the number 2 spot, dropping Orland down to 3rd place. Granger was circulating in 4th as he put his teammate Jaden Young 1 lap down. Young, unfortunately, went down hard, getting cross-rutted, obviously suffering from fatigue, running late on in the race. Engine fatigue this time around was the demise of Thabo Versteed, who was on for a definite top 5. So the 125's unfortunately suffering some problems. No issues out front. Looked like he's just unloaded his bike and his kit. Flag to flag victory for pre-race favourite Regan Westmouth. He's going to be tough to beat at this year's event. Starting to get up into the big bangers, the MX2 category with a 21 rider lineup. Fokelsan, Thixton, Gobi, Roberts and Josh Malimi. They're going to be interesting players to watch out for. The number 2 plate gets out front early on. Thixton trying to run and hide and get some clear air. He was in it to win it with Malimi right on his wheel. And you can see the pace that the MX2 Chargers were going to go. It was going to be an aggressive, rough ride to try and break your way inside the top 5 this time around. MX2s, some of the most aggressive riding happening out there. Thixton was out there early on for Zimbabwe and running and hiding. Fokelsan for South Africa in second place, starting to get a little bit nervous, twitching over his shoulder. Rawl was in the mix there as well, with the 42 coming and charging. Carl Bowling getting the job going for Zambia. For 1s and 2s though, it was Thixton and Fokelsan that were starting to get themselves locked into a titanic battle, with Gobi also starting to join the party. The number 15 of Brett Roberts had been a little bit quiet off the gate, and he was bringing Scotty Haygate and Ray Lebovich along for the ride. Werner Rawl, also from South Africa, starting to make the twitch over onto MX2s, normally running in the MX1s, and everyone once again dominating those outside lines. Out front, the leaders were running and the wind was starting to really pick up. And that was just blowing the track wide apart. Fokelsan was definitely on a ripper now, and he had to be, because all of a sudden Malimi had joined the party up into third place. And that was going to be the 1-2-3 battle from here on out. Thixton, though, in the lowlands, as some of the riders sitting outside the top 10 fly over the big tabletop. It was Thixton controlling it, but had he gone out too hard too early, because Fokelsan and now Malimi were starting to really pile on the pressure as the rest of the field picked up the pace. Some of the riders that had made some mistakes early on were charging hard. Scott Haygate absolutely flying and getting himself inside of a top 5, as everyone else started to just zone their way around the track and figure out how to find the best lines. Out front, still all about Thixton. But now Malimi had got himself up into the 2 spot. So Malimi was the fastest man on track at the halfway marker of the race, and so good at finding his way through some of the traffic, and that dropped Fokelsan down into third place. Thixton knew he was under pressure now, as the 1, 2 and 3 were separated by less than 5 seconds out on the circuit. A little bit further back, the number 15 of Brett Roberts was running the numbers to stay ahead of Scott Haygate. They were absolutely charging, trying to stay inside the 4 and 5 position. Getting through the lappers was starting to get a little bit more testing and tasking every single time. Kagundu from Uganda was battling, but the man that was charging now was Malimi. He had hit the front and put Thixton and Fokelsan back. The man that lost out big time there, in fact, was Thixton, dropping back into third place. So that was going to be a battle for the number 2 spot from here on out. Thixton and Fokelsan locked in it, but out front, Malimi's bike was starting to show some signs of issues. Big overheating pipe hanging out the bottom there. And in the end of the race, the closing laps, Fokelsan had now got himself up into a clear number 2 spot. Thixton was fading and fading badly. Zambian rider Carl Bowling had gone down in one of the flat sections just towards the end of the race, and that was going to be that. The flag was out though, and with the demise of Malimi, it was Fokelsan that took the win ahead of Thixton and Gobi. MX1, the 450, the superstars, going to see some of the fastest lap times coming out of these guys, and very, very strong lineup coming out of all the nations to make the lineup queue. Maddie Milan, Jaden Ashwell, Kieran Fitzgerald, Sharon Moore representing South Africa this time around, Kerry Cock. It was going to be an interesting one to see who was going to be walking it. Last time around in 2017, it was Ashwell who was near on unstoppable in Botswana. This time around though, with a very in-form Maddie Milan and Kieran Fitzgerald, it was going to be a hard task to try and figure it out. A couple of off-road riders had made the cut as well, representing the nations. Sharon Moore had jumped across from a little bit of enduro and off-road to run the numbers on the number 12 machine, as well as Rob Pollock from Botswana, often so good in the Desert 1000 race, this time around racing a bit of MX. Maddie Milan though had got the drop off the gate and was absolutely charging. The number 14 of Tyson Engelbrecht was running nice pace in the early stages as well, but it was all clear air out front. Number 11 of Fitzgerald, and then the number 1 of Jaden Ashwell. Number 1, very, very strong ranked rider coming out of last season. This was the first shot we saw of the number 12 of Sharon Moore, who can turn his hand to absolutely anything and would go on to get himself a top 5 finish. The rest of the crews were out there. Gerry Koch would eventually go on to get a number 6 finish. Maxime Van P riding out of Uganda. Great ride for him in the number 7 spot. The number 8 rider down there was Daniel Law riding out of Zimbabwe, eventually going on for a 14th place. About a quarter of the way into the race, Ashwell was starting to close things down on Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald still trying to find his form on the event, especially on the season. He's had a bit of a rough ride in 2018. Out front with clear air though, the Q4 Fuels Husqvarna of Milan was absolutely gone. Fitzgerald was in trouble. Ashwell had made up the ground and was about to pull the pin and make the pass for the number 2 spot. A nice inside line, and Fitzgerald unfortunately not able to even try and defend. His body languages telling you that he just would not be able to run the numbers. The number 14 of Tyson Engelbrecht seemed to be covering the number 4 spot quite nicely as well, with Charon Moore around about 5 seconds off his back wheel. The 32 of Robert Pollock making the move across from off-road racing to a bit of motocross and starting to come under pressure from the number 9 of Hamish Perry from Zimbabwe. Out front though, no issues, even making his way through the lappers, scything his way through. Matty Milan was good to go. Ashwell had got rid of Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald was not able to run the pace. He looked like he may well just hang on for a number 3 finish though. At the flag, Milan was job done and set his name up there as the man to beat in the MX1 category. And that was the end of day number 1. Join us on day number 2, where we picked up on the rest of the racing heats from the MX of African Nations. Welcome back to the Motocross of African Nations up in Zambia. Day number 2. And we pick up on the heats, starting out with the kids as we did. 50cc Warriors going at it. Jack Pullen was the man that walked away with heat number 1. Going to see if he could take the final victory and walk away as class champion. The crowds were massing by the second day of racing, which meant there was going to be a massive vibe. As the board turned sideways and the revs went up once again, Pullen, Maynard, Mostert, Gift, Larson, Smith, and everyone were going to be in the mix to try and see if they could walk away with a final victory. An early crash, though, sent a couple of key players plowing into the ground. The 43 of King from Zambia and the Zimbabwean Kraus on the number 10, taking some hard hits early on. But they had been asked to see if they could get up and recover from that one. The track on day number 2 in much better nick as well. The guys have done a little bit of ripping and figuring things out. The number 29 also going down early on. And that was Liam from Uganda, unfortunately going down hard early on as well and having some mechanical problems on his machine. The track was in great form and everyone was loving the inside ruts that had eventually formed. Maynard was covering those inside lines with the number 13 race 1 winner. Pullen was in the mix with Mostert this time around. Louis Mostert getting himself up into a number 3 spot. Gift from Uganda was going to be trying to challenge himself up there into podium positions, and he was going to try and get closed down by Southern from Zimbabwe. Very strong ride coming out of the number 7. The 19 of Bazinga from Kenya also starting to make a name for himself, just squeaking his way inside of the top 10. Out front though, absolutely charging and plying their way through the field, it was the usual suspects in the mix of Maynard, Pullen and Mostert from South Africa, and the Ugandan so strong coming out of Gift, the 26 rider, extremely gifted. Mabiru, one of the smallest riders out there from Uganda on the 27, just managing to stay in the mix. And the 15 of Mostert so strong towards the end of the race, but a big problem from Pullen, looping it out on the face of one of the takeoffs, dropping himself down now. That would be into 3rd place. He'd have to charge hard to try and get back up and challenge for the win. The win though, on the final time of asking in the 50cc's, went to Maynard. He got the win ahead of Pullen, who did recover to a number 2 spot, getting around Mostert to 3rd, and Smith eventually finishing in 4th.
Yesterday, I didn't really have a nice race. I fell 4 times, but I still got able to get a 2nd. And then today I got 2 wins, the 2nd heat and the 3rd heat.
Out of the auto twist and goes and into clutches and gears. The 65cc class and a much bigger lineup as well. 25 riders still in the gate and everyone chasing the cheese. Those last few crumbs of points. A couple of riders getting caught out and stuck in the gate, but no problems for the big swingers. The 14 of Van Veek this time around sees clear air and tries to run and hide to put a little bit of gap between himself and the chasers. Orland, Bacco, Abote, Pinetown, and a few guys piling up. Looked like around about 3 or 4 guys just outside of the top 10 gators getting caught up in the early stages. Hopefully they can still rejoin the fray and come racing to get those also valuable points at the third time of asking. Remember, this is all action from round 3. And last time to get those points on the plate for your nation. The 14 of Van Wyk in good nick, but watch out for a couple of charges coming in from the back. It's going to be very exciting times. The 106 this time around, starting to plough the field and get on up there. That's Hunter Moore, one of the independent riders, trying to get his name on the page and score some points. Orland and Bacco, watch out for the 26 and 10. Not the gates that they wanted, but they are sitting inside of the top 5 for now. Trying to chase down on the 11, almost tucking the front there for Meinhardt. He's under pressure big time. Deploy, starting to charge. He got the good gate, but unfortunately just got sent one place back in the early laps, leaving him to do all the chase down and the charge. The 41 of Pinetown there in good shape once again, trying to look for another top 10 finish. The flag this time, though, the final time of asking, was all about Meinhardt getting himself up there. In the overalls, it was Meinhardt ahead of Deploy, Van Wyk, Bacco, and Orland inside the top 5 for Uganda.
It feels really nice winning this event, African champion. Yeah, it was nice.
Onto the MX lights then, the 85cc's. The story of the event so far has been Stav Orland absolutely dominating heats 1 and 2 at the final time of asking, trying to go for the three-peat and the perfect day at the office at the 2018 running of the Motocross of African Nations. The 6 comes off the gate strong. Diane Manuel almost counting his chickens before they'd hatched there. Thought he might have jumped the gate, but oh no, the number 6 is running out front with incredible pace as always. It'll be strong to watch out for Orland, Manuel, Romans, Wakesa, Santamu, and Malimi to see who's going to walk away with the final victory on the day in the lights. Out front once again, strong numbers coming in. Manuel, very, very strong off the gate this time around. That's going to set him up nicely. The rest of the key players, watch out for the number 8 to come charging through there. That's Ricky White. He had a couple of big crashes early on in the day and is in recovery mode. The 26, though, of Stav Orland, the man that's gone 2 for 2 so far, staying ahead of Diane Manuel, and the number 11 of Johnny Malimi. 1, 2, and 3 are gone. The rest of the riders trying to pick up the pieces of the event. Riders tuck in the front once again. Those flat corners causing some issue. A massive crash there. That was Stav Orland tucking it, getting crossed up on the big tabletop off the side, a la Chad Reed style, but a little bit smaller. He's going to have to pick it up and try and recover, and that's going to put Manuel, that's Diane Manuel, out front with Johnny Malimi running second place. One of the riders that didn't fare so well that time, though, and unfortunately the flags are out, with a little bit of sideline assistance happening there. Good work for all the officials to get the job done. The number 26 of Orland back up and running and would eventually climb his way up into a top 3 placing, with mistakes coming left, right and center for the Pro Minis. Yellow flags happening all over the place, and it looks like a mechanical problem late on in the race for Cade Van Deventer. That's going to be him out of it. The final win of the day, though, going to Johnny Malimi, and some good points on the plate. In the overalls, it was Stav Orland who did manage to recover after that massive crash and still take the overall ahead of Malimi and Manuel.
It's a pretty good experience. I won overall, so yeah, I'm happy about it.
Done with all the junior categories then. Women's motocross, the day has been dominated, the weekend's been dominated by Leah Haygate from Zambia. And once again, the number 1 plate drops the hammer hard out the gate. The only woman able to hold a candle to her the whole way through the MX of Nations 2018 has been Jenna Bowling. And once again, the 42 slots into her customary number 2 spot, shadowed by Janke Pieterse. The number 7 has been coming on strong though. Leanne Young, once again, going at it bar to bar with a smaller version of her competitor, and that's Amber McGregor on the fastest 85 under women's rules. Out front, still no issues though. It was going to be a 3-for-3 domination the whole way through the 2018 running of the event. Leah Haygate and Zambia walking away with tons of points out front. Jenna Bowling slotting into a number 2 spot, and Janke Pieterse consistent as ever in 3rd place. McGregor was running just outside the top 3 on the 105. And unfortunately, some big problems for one of our crashes earlier on in the weekend. J. Dean De Lima not able to bounce herself back. The 43 of Hannah Watson was going to be sitting in single digits, eventually going on to take an 8th place at the final time of asking. The number 12, rocking and rolling out there, was Taryn Hughes. She was really fighting hard to stay in it, but the final win and going 3 for 3, clean score sheet, and the final checkered flag of the weekend going to Leah Haygate. That gave her the overall for the weekend ahead of Jenna Bolling and Janke Pietersler, with Amber McGregor and Leanne Young in 4th and 5th.
Overall, I think it was a really good day. I came away with the win and felt really good on the bike. In a way, I wish I was riding MX2 so I could show some of the guys how well I can actually do, because my times would have placed me 5th in the class overall. So I'm really chuffed with that.
Welcome back to the Motocross of African Nations from the Mopani Mines up in Kitwe, Zambia. And we pick up on the action from the 1-5 category. The third time of asking, the third heat of 3. And everyone going at it. Wasmuth, Sangster, Orland, Granger, Kira, Yasser. So strong off the gate as always is Orland. The whole family racing under the number 26 banners. And once again pins it to win it. Couple of tasty starts. Oh, one of the big loop outs there. The number 7 looked like it was David Evans from Zimbabwe. Just getting crossed up there, tucked the front off that small scrubber. And he was lucky to not take out half of the pack. Everyone else just trying to find their way through and get those last points. Clulo coming through there as well for Botswana. And out front, the number 26, Orland. The best way to stay out of trouble, as everyone knows, get the whole shot, run and hide. But Wasmuth is running with him this time as well, trying to change up the lines. They've done a little bit of watering in between the heats to get back and ready for the big track. Inside and outside cutback is how it's going to be. The number 6 of Granger, strong form this time around with Kihara from Kenya. An incredible ride, is going to be probably benefiting and trying to climb inside of a top 5 this time around. For the Kenyan rider, that's going to be a huge, huge bragging rights. Wasmuth, inside line once again, trying to trouble the back end of Orland. These guys are running very close together as well, pushing each other the whole way. The 109 getting crossed up, Doran, and unfortunately that looked like it was the Botswana rider going down there, Clulo. He just got a little bit crossed up. Change for the lead though. Nice over jump there in the big step up at the back of the track. And that's Wasmuth running numbers out front. The number 26 of Orland now starting to get eaten up with Sangster. Sangster, a little bit quiet in the early stages, comes good and comes strong. Liam LaRue trying to fight himself inside of single digits, but it's all about Wasmuth running the numbers out front with the 12 of Sangster now up into 2nd place. That has put the number 26 incredible riding of Aviv Orland down into 3rd place. The 1, 2 and 3 looks like they have been decided. Wasmuth though is absolutely dominating. He was a rider that got stronger as the weekend went longer, and the final victory goes to Wasmuth. That put him into the overall for the weekend ahead of Sangster, Orland, Granger and Yasser from Uganda, top 5.
I had a good weekend, started off good yesterday, got some good times in qualifying, managed to win the first race, and then I knew I could do it again today, so then today I put my head down, made some quick passes, got into the lead, managed to win both races, very happy with it. I've been waiting for this for a long time, so I'm very happy with my riding and it feels great.
As the day and weekend gets longer, everyone starts to bite their nails. Only a few more points left on the plate to see who will be crowned Motocross of African Nations country champion. This time around though, it's the MX2 category. Josh Malimi, after some mechanical problems, held him back early on in the weekend, starting to come on strong and almost getting taken out there. The number 2 of Thixton. If he'd have crossed that up, he'd have taken out Malimi and probably half of the field. So good save there. And Malimi would have had his heart in his mouth. Those two would be trying to run and hide and score all those valuable points. Remember though, they'd be up against Fokelsang, Haygate, Gobi, Roberts and Leibovich. Very strong competitors and an extremely stacked field in the MX2 category. The number 7 of Gobi has been a bit of a standout this time around. Some riders coming in there as well. Law, so strong off this gate as well. He's been constantly inside of the top 10 the whole way through the weekend. As we pick up on the rest of the fields trying to make their way through. Carl Bowling on the 42. He'd be looking for top 10 finishes. But early on, Thixton trying to stay ahead of a charging Malimi with the 7 of Gobi in the mix as well as the 12 starting to come on strong. Fokelsang, though, is going to be the man to watch. He's been the danger man the whole way through the weekend as everyone starts to get all kinds of crossed up there. That was Jason Shield from Zambia just about held on to it. The number 2, though, of Thixton is hanging on out front and trying to break away from the chasing pack. Everyone is piling on the pressure. Everyone knows how desperate it is to get those last points on the page. Botswana going at it and getting forced to the outside there. The 34 of Kagiso Stevens from Botswana. He would eventually get himself up there, but it would not be a finish come the end of this race. A high attrition rate at the end of an incredible day of racing. At the halfway marker, it was all about Malimi charging hard and getting up to the back wheel of Thixton. Gobi was coming along for the ride as well, but where was Fokkelsang? He was eventually up into 5th place and starting to now climb the ladder to challenge for top 3 placings. The story out front, though, was all about Malimi starting to build pace. We've seen this so many times with his career. So strong and does start to really fly towards the end of this races. The pass was made, though, off camera, and it was all about Malimi now trying to take the final victory of the day, with Thixton starting to slightly fade off, and he'd be in trouble later on with a charging Fokkelsang trying to close in and get those points on the page. Fokkelsang was plying the field and trying to get through the traffic as early and quickly as he could. Scotty Haygate on the 41 was eyeballing another top 5 finish as well, with Fokkelsang eventually getting himself up to 3rd place. Gobi, so strong at the late stages of these races, would once again be taking another top 5 and bagging and tagging a top 5 finish overall. In the MX2s, the last victory and the penultimate victory of the event went to Malimi. Thixton, though, walked away with the overall, with Fokkelsang in 2nd place, Malimi in 3rd, and Haygate 4th.
Managed to come away with the number 1 plate. I had everything on my side, including luck, but also put a lot of hard work in. The event was phenomenal. It went off really great. I'm really happy with my result. To come away with number 1 is far more than I expected. So I'm over the moon right now. The whole of the Zim team were really great. There was lots of encouragement on the side, and it was really cool to come out with a win for Zimbabwe, and especially for myself, it's been really awesome.
And the final race of the weekend, the big bangers and the last few crumbs of points available. Maddie Milan, almost untouchable on the weekend. Ashwell, super strong with consistent number 2 spots. Fitzgerald, Engelbrecht, Moore, Van P, and Koch, the big players. And once again, it would be Milan that this time did not get the whole shot. It was a resurgent Kieran Fitzgerald that railed the inside, forced the Husqvarna man to the outside, but Milan wasn't taking that one lying down, and they went bar to bar, elbow to elbow, and the roost was flying with the big horsepower 450s. The last riders out the track. A late race faller, unfortunately, the number 16 going down hard there. Looked like it was Cooper just having to pick himself up there late on in the event and try and charge his way back inside of a top 15 overall. Early on, though, it was all about the big banger, the flyers. Milan, Ashwell, Fitzgerald. Engelbrecht was flying high as well, trying to get some points on the plate as they stayed away from the riders trying to make their way inside of a top 5. Big change up, though, and it was all about Milan now running out front. Fitzgerald was in trouble as Ashwell started to close him down. Charon Moore was showing some incredible form as well as he put himself inside of top 5 consistently, and he was staying ahead of Van P, Koch, Thixton, Shield, Perry, Law, and Pollock. It was a mixed bag of riders making the big trip up to fight for those valuable points for the final time of asking. Out front, and in form as always, riding out of the Q4 Fuels Husqvarna squad, and for South Africa getting valuable points in the big banger category, trying to look over his shoulder and see who was coming on. By this stage, it was Ashwell who'd got himself out front and ahead of Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald unfortunately fading like a flower once again and having to settle for the cheap seats down in 3rd place. 1, 2, and 3 were absolutely gone, though. The final few laps, though, for Milan, he was just putting on the show. The number 12 of Charon Moore had got himself up into 12th place, and he was staying ahead of Van P and Koch, trying to chase down on Tyson Engelbrecht. Unfortunately, the time was out, and in the last few laps, Milan was just all about putting on the show and turning on the style as he came through the lappers. Daniel Law from Zimbabwe, with eyes on the finishing line there, just trying to see how many more laps there are still left on the tick. These guys were really working hard and suffering. It'd been a long, hard day, but awesome racing out here. John Evans as well, one of our independent riders, just moving over nicely and tagging the elbow as he waved on Maddie Milan through. For Maxim Van P for Uganda, it was an impressive ride, not only for himself, but also for his country. And Uganda certainly arriving in 2018 with a massive improvement in years gone by for the motocross of African nations. A hard-charging Jaden Ashwell threw down some of the fastest lap times in the late running, but it was all too late in the day. Milan had done enough to stay out front. Fitzgerald was going to bag and tag a third place and stay ahead of Engelbrecht, with Charon Moore impressive in fifth place overall. Manny Milan allowed the gap to be closed. Jaden Ashwell had thrown down lap record after lap record, but with corners running out, it was all for nothing. Milan would be able to come through and control the cheese. Everything else stayed the status quo, and the final victory of the motocross of African nations in the MX1 Big Bangers went to the unstoppable Milan. That gave him the overall for the weekend ahead of Ashwell and Fitzgerald, with Engelbrecht, Moore, Koch and Van P rounding out the top 7.
Jaden was coming, bro. Jaden was riding really good the first half of the race. I saw him coming. A few of his lines must have been better than mine because he was catching me in a few of the faster sections. But yeah, towards the end, like 4 laps to go, I sorted it out and yeah, took it home for a 1-1-1. Just like to say a big thank you to the South African team, everyone for helping me, and just everyone for being in a good mood this whole weekend. And yeah, congrats to all the champions and congrats to everyone that put in 100%. And big thanks to everyone that helped me this weekend as well. It was a great weekend.
And for 2018, the motocross of African nations champions are South Africa, beating out Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Botswana and Kenya. And a final thank you to the Mopani Mine and Kitwe in Zambia. We leave with the final words from Melinda Pinetown, our race secretary.
Motocross identifies Zambia as yet another sport category that they're able to compete in, which they do very well. It identifies us as a competing nation in motocross. So it's really developing. It's awesome for Zambia. It puts us on the map, sporting country, different sports that we participate in. Yeah.
All of this 2018 Motocross of African Nations was proudly brought to you by FIM Africa and their associate sponsors.